one of these teams' Grand Slam ambitions are going to end on Sunday. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. It really feels like this year's tournament is front-loaded with some really big clashes. We had Ireland-England last week. We've got England versus France on Saturday, and then Scotland versus Ireland on Sunday. So, basically the top 4 contenders all going head-to-head. And, this one, both teams, only one round in, obviously, but still on for possible Grand Slam and title. And, one of them is going to be disappointed at the weekend. As an Ireland fan, obviously, I'm hoping that it's not us, but I think either result is possible, honestly. So what we're going to do in this one is we'll talk about, first of all, the game itself, when it's on, etc. Then we'll have a look at the teams. We'll talk about the changes to the teams compared to, last week, and maybe what impact that's going to have as well on the game. And then we'll have a look at some stats from last week that might be pertinent in this game as well. So this is Scotland versus Ireland, and it's on Sunday, the 9th of February, 2025. It's at Murrayfield. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff in the UK or Ireland. I really wish it was 4 o'clock because then I'd be able to watch the whole game at home rather than, going to watch the first half on the train home and then the second half when I get home. So last year then it was Ireland 17, Scotland 13, so very close game. In 2023, Scotland 7, Ireland 22. And these ones, for the most part, now, not really high scoring occasions. So if Scotland can book that trend and get into kind of the mid-20s, maybe that's going to be a bit of a task for Ireland to be able to beat them then. Odds then, Scotland 11-5, Ireland 8. I think I put those the wrong way around. No, I didn't. 18-35 for Ireland. So basically, 2-1 on for them, and then 25-1 is the draw. That threw me off. Like, why you? I guess they have to go fractions and stuff, right? That's why it's 18 instead of like just 2-1 on or whatever. But again, very excited for this game. I've got my my Glasgow shirt on as well in honor of player who's making a start for Scotland this week as well. So let's get into the teams, and we will start with the Scotland team. So starting for fullback, you got Blair Kinghorn, then Darcy Graham on the right wing. Centres, Hugh Jones and Tom Jordan. That's why I've got the shirt on here is for Tom Jordan in honour of him. Left wing, Duhan van der Merwe. Then we have Finn Russell at 10 and Ben White at 9. The front row is Rory Sutherland, Dave Cherry, Sander Fagerson. Second row, Johnny Gray and Grant Gilchrist. Back row of Matt Fagerson, Rory Darge and Jack Dempsey. So on the bench then, you got Ewan Ashman, Pierre Schoeman, Will Hurd, Sam Skinner, Gregor Brown, Jamie Ritchie, Jamie Doby and Stafford McDowell. Okay, so that's the Scotland team. Now let's have a quick look at the Ireland team. So front row is Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher, Finlay Bealham. Second row, James Ryan and Tyke Byrne. Back row, Peter O'Mahony, Josh Van der Fleer, Caelan Doris. Halfbacks, James Gibson Park and Sam Prendergast. Left wing, James Lowe. Centres, Bundia Key and Robbie Henshaw. Right wing, Mac Hansen. Fullback is Hugo Keenan. Then on the bench, you got Dan Sheehan, Keane Healy, Thomas Clarkson, Ryan Baird, Jack Conan, Conor Murray, Jack Crowley and Gary Ringrose. So Ireland going for a 5-3 split and Scotland going for a 6-2. So Scotland obviously, want to kind of try and match this Ireland pack all through the game and doing that by having the extra forward on the bench as well. So, and I do mean this, it's not sarcastic. It is fingers crossed that we don't get too many back injuries for Scotland because, I've talked about it many, many times. Although I'm an Ireland fan or a Leinster fan or wherever, I don't want to see the opposition having players getting injured because you want to beat, the opposition when they're at their best, and you're at your best, and hopefully your best is good enough to win out on the day, not because people got injured or stuff like that. I just want to see the best players play too. So hopefully, again, fingers crossed, it doesn't kind of come back to bite Scotland in the ass. So let's talk about then the changes for each of the teams. So for Scotland, Tom Jordan, again, brilliant for Glasgow. He's into the centres with Stafford McDowell dropping down to the bench. Then Rory Sutherland starts ahead of Pierre Schumann, who drops to the bench. Jack Dempsey replaces Jamie Ritchie. And Matt Fagerson then moves to 6 to accommodate him. So Jack Dempsey obviously in at 8. Jamie Ritchie drops down to the bench. Sam Skinner and Jamie Dobie come onto the bench. And Kyle Rowe and George Horn drop out of the match day 23. So looking at the Scotland's team, so the big thing that jumps out obviously is that they're going with Tom Jordan over Stafford McDowell at 12. So a distributor there, second distributor. Well, they've got a third one really, right? Because you got Finn Russell at 10, master distributor in chief. Then you got Tom Jordan at 12 and also Blair Kinghorn at full back. So plenty of options for, who's going to give that killer pass for them there. So looking to, have as many players really who can spot a gap and exploit it, in that back line. So Ireland got to be really on the game, I think, against that, because you look then at the guys who they're potentially looking to put through the gaps. Darcy Graham, Hugh Jones, Duhan van der Merwe, all in fantastic form. Like Hugh Jones coming off the back of a hat-trick last week, and now we've got 3 guys who'll be looking to put them, into space and really get at that Ireland defence as well. So, scary options really in the backs there for Scotland. In the pack then, so you got Sutherland, who did really well off the bench, replacing Schumann. Although Schumann, just even for the crowd, when he gets the ball, I think he's just fantastic with that. But he's been a really good, in good form the last kind of year or so as well. So I was a little bit surprised that he dropped down to the bench. But again, he's someone who can absolutely give them, impact from that bench as well. Then, having Jack Dempsey come in at 8 as well, means that with him there, and then you have Fagerson as well, you've got some really good carrying options in that back row. And then you got Rory Darge, who, again, another guy who had a fantastic game last weekend. And, a lot of talk now about lines, etc. for him. And, on that form, you certainly wouldn't bet against him, going on the lines, and just a brilliant poacher and all around game as well last week was very good. So, nice balance to the back row there for them. And, it's always good to have somebody like Ferguson who is kind of, versatile like that you can play him 6 or 8. And then, when Jamie Ritchie comes on, he's going to slot in, at 6 and either come straight swap for Ferguson, or he'll come up for Dempsey and Ferguson will move back to 8, I would imagine. Then you got Sam Skinner coming on to the bench there as well. So just another option, in the pack there as well for them, going to be decent, I think, coming off the bench. Generally, anytime we've seen him, like he's performed well, and that's what Scotland are going to look for is impact from the bench, because we're expecting, given the recent results, tight game with this one, and you will be looking, both teams will be looking to the bench to maybe edge it for them towards the end. Then you got Jamie Dobie is preferred to George Horn as his replacement 9 as well. So that's kind of an interesting call there as well. There's always at the moment, obviously Ben White is number 1, but there's a lot of rotation that does happen in the Scotland squad for the replacements. So, maybe Dobie will give them, something that they're looking for. I think generally with him on, I'm expecting that they're trying to kind of, again, exploit space that might be there later on in the game. And I think he could probably do it a little bit better than Horn. So we'll have to see how that goes. And Stafford McDowell, there, he's gonna, he's basically the cover for the rest of the back line, but you have players who can move around. Either Kinghorn or Jordan can slot in at 10 if Finn Russell is either needs to be taken off or is injured or whatever. And then McDowell can slot in, into the centres, or, if he needs to cover wing or whatever, or he can move. Kinghorn can easily, play on the wing as well. So they've got tons of options in terms of moving players around. So again, as long as there aren't, more than a couple of injuries in the back line, they should be fine with that. They've got plenty of cover, from the players that are already starting in terms of being able to shift people around that back line. So they should be, fine. But yeah, it's an impressive team really that Scotland have picked. Now, on to Ireland and what Ireland have done in terms of their changes. So first of all, Peter O'Mahony is in at 6. So that is in place of Ryan Baird, who drops down to the bench. And it's very different players. Obviously, Baird very dynamic, whereas O'Mahony bigger breakdown threat, probably a better, certainly on opposition ball, better line out operator as well, and he brings that bit of dog with him too. One of the differences though is O'Mahony's probably more likely to pick up a yellow card, honestly. But every player has pluses and minuses. But Peter O'Mahony, if he's there, personally, I wasn't a fan of the likes of Peter O'Mahony or Ian Henderson being in the squad in the first place. But if they're in the squad, then yeah, I'm all for them being used, because they're great players, and they don't, they've been in and around the team for so long because they generally don't let the team down. So going to be interesting to see how he goes, and how that kind of works out with Baird coming off the bench. Baird, to me, kind of suits being the kind of player to come off the bench, because you want him, in that open space and be able to exploit that. Similar to Izuchuku, who hasn't featured yet this Six Nations, but probably will later on in the tournament. Then Robbie Henshaw is up from the bench with Gary Ringrose dropping down. So I think Henshaw is pretty much been rewarded for his performance last week off the bench. And Ringrose as well on that bench. It means that you've got cover for your centres and for wing as well. Although, defending on the wing, he does have some issues, but still a decent option to bring off the bench. Then Ian Henderson drops out of the squad completely. With the changes that were made. So basically, Peter O'Mahony's coming into the squad instead of Ian Henderson. And then, he's come into the starting lineup, which means then that Baird drops down to the bench. And then the other kind of bit of news as well is it's obviously too soon for Tadhg Furlong to come back into the team. And, I said it before, it's more realistic for him to aim for that Wales game, because we're going to have the follow week and then we'll have that. So he has an extra 2 weeks to get himself set for that. And if he's not right for that, then he's got 2 more weeks, until the next game as well, because it'll be another follow week too. But just in terms of the selections, then obviously a big one is Sam Prendergast retains his starting spot at 10, even though Jack Crowley was brilliant off the bench, against England. And I think it's right as well, because probably thinking like he's a 21-year-old guy, and it might have been a blow to his confidence, just because a few things didn't go his way, that you would take him out of the starting lineup. But again, I do hope and expect that the team will be rotated through the rest of the tournament. So no matter what happens in this game, win or lose, I'm hoping that Crowley will get a start against Wales. And then, after that, then a shootout between them, in terms of who gets to play versus France. I'm not sure whether they will actually do that or not, or whether they just want to consistently the same guy, until performance says that he definitely shouldn't be starting. We'll have to see. But yeah, that was obviously one of the big ones there. And then, the rest, like the only other one really was, would Sheehan be fit to start this week, given how good he was off the bench? And I think Kelleher did well enough, though, starting, that it makes sense, because Sheehan, you want him again in those last kind of 20 minutes or so, when the game is more open, to be able to do what he does that no other hooker, I think, in World Rugby can do. Like, the guy is, he plays more like a centre, honestly, in open field, and then he's kind of centre as well, but also I compare him to Dupont as well. In certain ways, kind of like talked about, comment with somebody, his instinct in terms of being able to support breaks and stuff like that is brilliant. And because sometimes at Ireland, someone can make a fantastic break and there's nobody with them, and then it kind of goes, comes to nothing. But he's so good at that, trail runner, and getting in the right spot to get that pass. Then you saw, like, with his try, like he had 3 involvements in that try, including a fantastic pass out wide as well, and then finishing off in the end. So, bringing him on definitely makes sense. All same with Jack Conan as well. I think he's another one who's better from the bench. And then when you're thinking of it as well, Ryan Baird and Peter O'Mahony, it makes sense for them to be that way around. You're not really bringing Peter O'Mahony off the bench, to try and swing a game for you, or to exploit space late on. So if he's in the squad, he should be in the starting team, to my mind. Then Thomas Clarkson, I think, did well off the bench last week as well. Kind of kept up his side of the scrum, etc. And Philly Beelum is doing fantastic, deputising for Furlong as well. So overall, as an Irish fan, pretty pleased with the selection. And again, I think it's 2 really good teams going head to head. Like, some of the stuff that we talked about in the preview of the round was, that Scotland got a fast start against Italy. Ireland had a slow start against England. So if Scotland can replicate that against Ireland, they'd be very happy with that, because part of the problem for Scotland has been that, they haven't been able to kind of get ahead of Ireland and kind of maintain that for any length of time. There have been times when they maybe scored first and then Ireland very quickly respond. But generally, in a lot of these close games, Scotland haven't held the lead for too long. And then they're always trying to play catch up as well in the game. So if they can get the same fast start again and kind of catch Ireland cold, that would be, fantastic for them. On the other side of things, then, that Russell intercept that we saw against Italy. That's what this Ireland team was built on in terms of defence. We have lots of shooters out of the line. Ringrose isn't starting, but when he does start, he has that license to shoot up into the 13 channel and go for things like that. So we may see another one like that, but it may be that Russell is such a good player that he might tempt somebody to shoot out of the line and then exploit that space by putting somebody through the gap that's left there. So that's going to be an interesting little kind of duel, I think, through the game. And also, we've got the two best performing lineouts in the Six Nations so far going head to head. So Scotland for a long time have had a fantastic lineout. Ireland's lineout success is much more recent, like basically the England game, right? Before that, everybody I think was worried about our lineout, and there's no guarantee it's going to go as well on Sunday either, especially against such a fantastic lineout that Scotland have. So that's another good one to see there. And I talked again in the other one as well about Ireland being Scotland's bogey team, and somebody was commenting that they think it's just that Ireland are maybe a better team, but that may be so, but there have been times in the sequence where Scotland have lost, I think it's the last 8 or whatever, but there have been times where Scotland have been the better team in games, but they haven't actually come out with the win. And it's just one of those ones where you've got to get that first win, and then suddenly your performances against that team in future meetings can go up another level because you've been there, you've got that kind of in your memory banks to go to. And I think that's kind of more what I was referencing, is that for me it doesn't really matter in terms of on paper who are the better team. There have been times I think that Scotland probably on performance should have beaten Ireland and they didn't in that sequence. And now it's the case of, can they deliver the performance, but also back it up on the scoreboard as well for this game. So we're going to have a look at some of the stats then, and then we'll wrap things up. So I'm going to just let me pull it up here. There we go. Okay. So first of all, Scotland and Ireland, the teams with the most possession in the first round. Scotland with 58% and Ireland 51%. And I know you'll say, it's fine margins, but it does make a difference. And then especially when you look at territory, Ireland with 58, Scotland with 55. And the three teams that won last week, like France are in third with 54, all dominated territory. You don't necessarily have to dominate territory, and it's about being, if you don't, you have to be more clinical is the problem, right? Then attacking minutes, Scotland with the most attacking minutes from last week, 22.8, and Ireland middle of the pack there with 19.2. And then meters carried, Scotland again the most with 1,014.2, Ireland second with 870.2. So Ireland will be looking around the same number. Scotland, if they can get 1,000 carried meters against Ireland, they'll be doing fantastically well. Kicks and play then. Ireland second to England with 31 and Scotland with 28. So generally we like both of the teams. They kick, but they kick to basically create the picture that they want in the opposition defence. And I think we're going to see more of that. Scotland's kick meters surprisingly low though last week. Like Ireland won on 948. That was the most of any team, and Scotland second least with 748.4. I expect that to increase against Ireland. I expect them at least in the 800s, if not, we've seen Scotland before, like over 1,000 at 1,100, etc. Then tackles made. Two teams again made the least amount of tackles in the first round. Ireland with 153 and Scotland with 131. So again, they're going to want, both teams will want to kind of dominate that ball, make the opposition make more tackles. Tackle success then, Scotland doing much better, 89.12, Ireland down with 82.26. So I think the big thing there is going to be, Scotland will make Ireland miss tackles, but can they then turn that into line breaks and then turn those line breaks into scores? Whereas on the flip side for Ireland, it's going to be, we're going to miss tackles. Is a scramble defence that, has been fantastic for much of this kind of, last kind of 5 or 6 years. Can that, stuff out any breaks that Scotland might get from that? So that's going to be kind of interesting, certainly in the game. Penalties conceded then, Scotland 8, Ireland 8. So 8 is a decent number for any team. And they're both going to be looking again, keep it in single fingers, give away less penalties than the opposition, and then try not to give them away in bursts, because we've seen it before. You can give away, 5 or 6 penalties in the game, but you give away 4 in a row, like near your own line, somebody's going to the bin almost certainly. Whereas you could give away 10, 12 penalties in the game, but if they're all spread out for different things, you might get a warning at some stage for too many penalties, but that might lapse, and you end up not getting a yellow card. Rucks then 0 to 3 seconds. Scotland with 52.99% to Ireland's 51.881. So very similar in that regard. And then, I worked out a notional ruck speed as well for each team. So the way I worked it out was any rucks that were 0 to 3 seconds, I gave it an average of 1.5. Any one that were 4 to 6 seconds, I gave an average of 5. And anything over 6 seconds, I gave an average of 8. So these aren't, completely accurate numbers. They're more of kind of a guide. But average ruck speed on using those numbers, Scotland 3.5299. And Ireland 3.5481. So very close again, 0.01 of a second between the two teams on that. So very similar. And you look at the teams both teams have picked. They have players there who will definitely be targeting slowing down the opposition ball. The likes of certainly Darge, who was fantastic at it against Italy. And then for Ireland, Byrne and Peter O'Mahony would be the chief ones there, I think. So you've got that. And then also you've got, the guys like maybe Josh van der Fleer or, James Ryan for Ireland. And then like on the Scotland side, like, your clears there as well. You're probably going to have like, like Grant Gilchrist, and probably like Fagerson and Dempsey in there as well, trying to clear out and get fast ball for your team as well. So breakdown going to be a huge battle, I think, between these two, and the stats say that they're probably going to be very similar in terms of the timings for stuff as well. Then let's have a look at some other stats as well. We'll just look at a few more. So breakdown steals, Scotland with 2, Ireland just with 1. I'm expecting that to go up for both teams, honestly, at the weekend. So we'll see how that goes. And then mauls 1, France way in front on 9, Scotland next with 5, and Ireland down there with 3. I think Scotland probably have a better maul than Ireland. And that certainly would be evidenced in the URC, where you have Glasgow with I think probably the best maul in the URC, and also Ireland have had troubles with their maul when they don't have Sheehan sitting in the pocket to kind of burst off the back, and then Ireland have struggled at times as well with maul defence too. So that dynamic, if it comes into the game, would certainly be interesting. On the scrums then, both teams won 5 scrums. So it's going to be all about, getting that, setting the kind of the example for the referee at the start, setting your tone and trying to not be the first penalised. And certainly you don't want to be penalised in the first 2 scrums, because then that could be a very long afternoon for your front row. Lineouts 1 then, we talked about it, in terms of 2 really good lineouts at the moment. Ireland with 23 out of 23 last week and never put like a foot wrong with that. And Scotland 13, clean takes for them. But again, it's just for Scotland, it's the fact that their line out has been good for so long, and given that they've got a decent line, they've got a really good line out, they've got a really good maul. Those dovetail very well together. In Ireland, they've got to then think about, okay, so if they got 5 meter line outs, are we going to get up and compete? Especially with this new rule change where if it's crooked and you don't compete, then it doesn't matter. Like it's not going to get blown. So do we get up and compete and try and disrupt them, or do we stay down and try and take on that maul? So if Scotland can get opportunities to kick to the corner, especially early on in the game, I'm expecting them to kick to the corner and turn down points to the post, given that that they have that dynamic and they know that Ireland are going to be worried about it. Whether it pays off or not is another thing. But those are the stats there. Now, how do I think the game is going to go? I think it's going to be a close one. And Scotland are definitely growing as a team, but it feels like they do have to. They've got to produce against Ireland to show that they have actually taken a step forward, because we know they can beat England. They do it pretty much every year now. Whether they do this year or not is another thing. And then against France, they seem to have whatever it is, they seem to have absolutely no fear going to Paris and turning France over. Whereas Ireland, it's always been like a big task. And we always kind of celebrate any wins we get in Paris, but Scotland seems to be like an easier thing for them, and it's almost like rock scissors paper at times, right? With stuff like that. So Scotland at home to Ireland seems to be a more difficult game for Scotland than Scotland going to Paris for whatever reason. But how do I think the game is going to go? I think it's going to be a tight game, and I think Ireland are going to edge it. That might be, I'm Irish, so I've obviously got a bias towards Ireland. That might be that bias playing in there, but I do think it's going to be like a score or two between the teams. Neither of the teams, I think, is going to run away with it. If Ireland ran away with it, I'd obviously be happy as an Ireland fan for that, but I'd be disappointed as a rugby fan, because I'm looking forward to this being a proper contest between these two teams. And I've got lots of respect for not just Scotland, but for the Scottish teams as well. Glasgow and Edinburgh, I love watching them in the URC. I love watching Scotland play as well. And if I wasn't an Ireland fan, I'd probably be a Scotland fan, honestly. But I've got to go, with my own team with this one when it's so tight. So I'm going to go for an Ireland win. So that's the end of this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments.